of our nation, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome your senior senator, Marco Rubio!
Thank you, guys. All right. Thank you. I've always wanted to do a rally at a brewery standing behind a bar, you know, and you guys are rowdy. No one's even drinking yet. Just wait till, man, we're so excited. We have such a great slate of candidates. First of all, let me just tell you something. It's going to be fun to have Aaron Bean in the house just for the speeches, just for the value of the energy that he brings. I've known him for a long time. I mean, this guy is a force of nature in that regard, and so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. John Rutherford is a tremendous congressman. He does tremendous credibility, respected on both sides of the aisle, brings a tremendous amount of experience. You want to talk about law enforcement, law and order, safety, security, he's lived it. He knows it. We are so proud that he's part of our delegation and all the work that he does. I'm proud to call him a friend. And he's right. You know, he endorsed me when I started running for the Senate. Let me tell you, 2010, okay, 2009, and I'm running for Senate. You may have forgotten about this. You may have forgotten about this guy, but I decided I'm going to run the Republican primary against the governor of Florida, who's a Republican, and his name is Charlie Crist. Back in that sort of incarnation. Amazing, by the way. I only saw bits and pieces of the debate last night, and it struck me. I said, this guy is going to have the distinction of having lost an election to me, then an election to Rick Scott, and now an election to Ron DeSantis. He's running out of Republicans to lose to. And last night we were introduced to his running mate, which is a small electric fan that you might have seen on the side of the stage. But it's a step up, because when he ran against me, he had 2 fans, all right? And it looked like, you know, it looked like those movies where the skirt blows up, you know, that kind of thing. So anyway, I don't even know why I mentioned all that, other than it's fun and we're at a bar. We can talk about whatever we want. It's not like there's cameras or media here. Anyway, so you know, we run for office, and at the time, and you're looking at, and Rutherford was talking about this, it's like nobody thought I could win. There were like 5 people thought I could win. All of them lived in my home. They were all under the age of, 4 of the 5 were under the age of 6 at the time. And then John Rutherford and a couple others, and I'm so proud. Now, a lot has happened since then. The country's changed, the world has changed. When I ran, you know, back then in 2010, it was because I thought the direction these people are taking our country is a really dangerous one, a bad one. Well, fast forward, we now see what they do when they have power for that period of time. So I always get a chuckle, right? You read in the press, they say, oh my gosh, look, Republicans are now surging the polls, or people are going to vote. I said, oh yeah, I don't know why people would vote for Republicans all over the country when, for example, the same people have been in charge for 2 years, and like gas prices have doubled, inflation's eating up people's budget, crime is surging, the border, 5,000 people a day are crossing the border illegally. I don't know what people are upset about. Of course, this is a disaster. This is a disaster, okay? So we have people that Biden nominates, puts in these positions, they come before Congress and have the gall, have the face to say, the border's secure. Well, not our border, maybe somebody else's border is secure, but not the southern border, not even Canada's border, but not our border. 5,000 people a day. And both the chairman and Congressman Rutherford mentioned this. Yeah, look, I don't know, maybe all of us here are either immigrants, first, second, third generation, for the most part, right? Maybe a couple of you can track yourself back to the Mayflower. Guess what? Immigrants too. This is not about immigration. This is about illegal immigration. This is about chaos. This is about mass migration. No country in the world can sustain mass migration. None. None. Not even the state of Massachusetts can tolerate mass migration. All right? A few weeks ago, 48 people are flown on a private jet to Martha's Vineyard. So they get there, and in the state of Massachusetts, 48 people get off the plane, the state of Massachusetts declares a state of emergency. 48 people, all right? They mobilize the National Guard. So 48 people, they mobilize 112 guardsmen. So I don't know what the ratio is there, but it's like more than 2 to 1. They then, you know, welcome them in, they feed them, they invite all the cameras, look how compassionate we are, we're feeding, we're providing, this is so cool. 48 hours later, they deport them to Cape Cod. Okay? Because what that does is, and it shows you, it's easy. It's easy when you live all the way there, when you live in these gated communities. The person I'm running against, Val Demings, last week before a report comes out, she lives in a community that has a wall around her. And at the front of the wall, there's a security guard. And by the way, the security guard doesn't let you in unless you show ID. So we can't show ID for voting, that's suppression. Well, I think she has neighborhood suppression, because you can't go into a neighborhood without showing ID. Right? So you can't get into a neighborhood without showing ID and going through a guard, and you can't, or climbing a wall. But we can't have a wall for America. We can't have people at the border. She's asked at the debate, well, what would you do? I would hire more processors. She calls them boots on the ground. I call them Gucci's on the ground, because there are people that are going to be there to process people. So what she's basically saying is, we're going to hire people to process their paperwork so we can let them in faster. That's literally the argument. That's the mindset. Unfortunately, and this is sad to say, I don't like to say it, but it's the truth. You got to be honest about it now. We do not have a mainstream media in America today that reports these things fairly. Listen, it is a shock. The actors are against us. Okay, the singers, all the celebrities are against us. Every major corporation is against us. Everyone. The labor unions, for the most part, are against us. Obviously, most of the mainstream media is against us. Forget about universities; they're more than against us. And yet somehow we win these elections. Why? Because in this country, none of those people have power, but none of them govern. You know who governs? You do. The people govern. They govern by going to the ballot box, and they govern by voting, and that's what we're going to do again. Now, so these people are in charge of everything, and they've created a total disaster, a lunacy. Here's the lunacy. Number one, the lunacy is now that not only are 5,000 people coming a day, but the answer is that there's no problem there. This is not an issue we need to confront. This is not an emergency. Nothing to see here. Not to mention the drugs. If you can bring people, you can bring drugs. Drugs are a lot easier to smuggle than human beings. And it's pouring into our country from China, I believe by design, in order to kill people in this country and cripple us. Okay, that's what they're doing a lot. Read last week, some of this fentanyl now looks like Skittles. Colored little Skittles. Who's that aimed at? It's aimed at killing our children and our future. So that's coming across the border in addition to mass migration, terrible thing for the country. And then crime is surging all over the country. Now we're better off than most places because we have sane leaders and good leaders at governor and the state legislature and local governments. But some of these other places are hellholes. You can't live in some of these cities, great cities. Once great world famous cities, you can't even live there anymore. New York City, people are afraid to walk down the street. At any moment, someone jumps out of some corner, attacks you, pushes you into a subway, kills you for a random act of violence, and then people are like, why is this happening? Well, here's how that happens. If you tell police officers you're evil, and if you do your job, we're going to come after you, we're going to make it easier to sue you personally, and then on top of that, you have prosecutors that say, entire categories of people, we won't prosecute them. You're going to get crime. Every time I get asked about the January 6th committee, which is a joke, a kangaroo court, a joke, I say, listen, I'll pay attention to that when they have a committee on the riots of 2020. Where's the committee on the riots of 2020? Where's that committee? Where's the committee to examine how many people were incentivized to go out and torch police cars after the now Vice President of the United States, known as the border czar, Kamala Harris, after she was raising money to bail people out of jail. So a guy sets a police car on fire, goes to jail, and she's helping raise money to bail him out so he can set another police car on fire. They cost billions of dollars in damages. Where are the hearings on that? Where are the hearings on the pro-life pregnancy centers that are being firebombed? No hearings on that. It's a double standard. Tragically, a couple nights ago, I say tragically, very, very disturbing, a young man's walking with a DeSantis hat on and my t-shirt, and he gets attacked. They break up his face, they transfer him to a trauma unit. Thank God he's home. I can report that he's home and he's doing better. All right? Part of the media immediately puts the guy on trial. Well, he was at this rally, he did that rally. First of all, the people who attacked him didn't know anything about him. All they knew about him is he had a DeSantis hat and a Rubio shirt on. Number one. Number two, so apparently it's okay to attack the victim, put the victim on trial as if somehow he deserves that, and basically if they don't like you, they label you, it's okay to commit violence against them. That's the one group. The other group comes out and says, well, Rubio said that he was attacked by 4 people, but the police report only says 1. Well, just stand by. Because there's no way, unless that guy that attacked them was some MMA champion, there's no way one guy caused that damage, and you'll see that fairly soon. My point is, it's a double standard constantly, all the time, and it's frustrating and it makes people angry, but people see it. People see it. So that's what we're battling here. An administration that's taken over by the benefit of the air cover they get from the media, that told us, don't worry about inflation, it's not real. Then they told us it's transitory. Now the latest one is inflation, it's happening all over the world. Well, They're happening all over the world because they make stupid decisions in their government, but we made they wanted to spend $3 trillion into our economy. They spent $1.9 trillion. Everybody, even Obama's economists told them, you do this, you're going to have inflation. They did it, and here we have it. So we have the inflation problem, the gas prices. Oh, gas is so high. Well, you know, the war and this and that and the other. It's the war. It's Putin's fault. Of course, Biden takes the credit when the prices went down a little. He doesn't want to take the blame when they go up. No, the reason why we have high gas prices is because they are waging war on fossil fuels. They are waging war. Biden said it when he was running for president, we're going to put these people out of business. So he's telling this whole industry, you are no better than cocaine cartels. I'm going to put you out of business, but I demand that in the next 5 years you produce more in the meantime. Well, who's going to invest in an industry where the President of the United States is saying we're going to put you out of business, where they're telling banks, don't lend them money. Don't lend these people money. And so here we have this situation, this absurd situation, where we do not allow American companies, we discourage them from producing more, but we are begging other countries to produce more. So they're all angry at the Saudis for not producing more oil. Because as everyone knows, and the scientists have all found, Saudi oil is good for the climate. American oil is bad for the climate, right? It's absurd. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. But that's how they pursue it. So now everyone's supposed to drive an electric car. This is my favorite. Right. I have nothing against these electric cars. If they catch fire, you can't put them out, apparently, from what I saw. You know, on the internet. It's on the internet, but I have people tell me too. You can't put these things out. But great story a couple months ago. Again, you're not, you know, CNN is not going to do a 5-part series on this. So I'm going to have to tell you, you're going to have to research it yourself. In California, they passed a law. It said by 2035, we will not allow the sale of electric cars in California. I'm sorry, gasoline cars. Thank you very much. I was just doing that to see if you were paying attention and if you heard the story. All right. So you're not allowed to buy gas-powered cars in the next 20 years. You can't buy them. Perfect. That's what they said. About 72 hours later, they send out a text to the whole state. Do not charge your electric cars. It's going to overheat the grid. So we had this terrible storm, and we're driving, and I'm trying to figure out how can I drive from my house to Lee County, like maneuver and get back, knowing there's no gas stations from the Miccosukee tribe all the way there and back. So we got to calculate. And the cars, they have this thing that says 300 miles range. But that's a bunch of crap. It's never 300 miles. It's like all of a sudden it goes from 300 to 250 in like 5 minutes. Like, how did that happen? But anyway, the flux capacitor, yeah, remember that? So we're driving this car, and I just think to myself, my God, imagine if I had an electric car. Where would I charge it? Forget about gas station. Where would I charge it? There's no power from there and back. So unless they invent electric cars with those little cranks like the batteries that you can crank up and get 5 miles, crank it more, give them 5 more miles. I don't have any problem with this, guys. I don't care. You want to have an electric car, go ahead, knock yourself out. I'm all for it. Okay? I have no problem with that. But don't force everything. Don't destroy the economy of the greatest country in the world. That's what these people want to do. They're radicals. They're crazy. So there's that problem. We talked about the crime, we talked about the inflation, we talked about the gas prices, and then we have these civilian leaders of the military. And this place, by the way, started by veterans, served our country proudly. We thank everyone here who's a veteran. God bless all of you. Is this mine? Okay. I always ask, is this mine? The Chinese might try to poison me. I don't know. So I got to... So, wow, there's a bunch of nurses. Yeah, great. Yeah. I don't need that story. Rubio revived after. So you have this situation that's absurd and ridiculous, started by veterans, and we thank them for your service. You now have these civilians at the Pentagon who spend all day producing these videos on YouTube. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. Look, we, in the Navy, we use the proper pronouns. I said, no, I need you to focus on these aircraft carriers that China's building. How do we defend against those aircraft carriers? We have our focus all wrong, and yet that's what these people focus on. On issue after issue, they are a joke, because they represent a small minority of the American people who live in a handful of places, who think they're smarter than everybody else. They live in New York, they live in West Hollywood, they live in the outskirts of Washington, D.C., and everyone they know is just like them, and they went to very fancy schools, and they have a bunch of degrees, but no common sense, and they think they've got the world figured out. They think they've got the world figured out. But they have a lot of power. They are a small minority, but they have a lot of power. So those are the laptop liberal base of the Democratic Party. The laptop liberal, the people who can work from home because what they do doesn't require them to take a shower after work. They can take a shower before work. And they work from home, and they're laptop liberals. And then you have a second element in the Democratic Party, and that's the Marxist misfits. Okay? And these are Marxists. And I don't know if they call themselves that. They probably have done the polling and said, hey, the Marxist label is not a good one. Let's call ourselves something else. Call them whatever you want. They are Marxists. Because Marxism is not about economics, it's about controlling people. Everywhere in the world that Marxism kicks in, it tries to take over everything. Take over the media, take over the schools, replace the family, take care, control government, tell you what, change the language and the words you're allowed to use and not use. Marxism accepts no competition from any sector of society. These people are Marxists. So you have the Marxist misfits and you have the laptop liberals, and together they represent not the majority of Democratic voters, but the majority of the Democratic power brokers. And so even if you're a Democrat from the old school that doesn't believe in the stuff and you think it's crazy, you're afraid of them. Because these are the people that raise money. These are the people that knock on doors. This is the activist base of the party. They're the ones that will show up outside your home with pitchforks and torches to get rid of you. These are the people that storm into events. These are the people that do all this damage. And they have gotten a hold of one of our two major political parties. And I'm telling you, if we don't stop that combination of the laptop liberals and the Marxist misfits, if we don't stop these people, and we don't stop them now, they will destroy this country. And we're not going to allow it. We will not allow that to happen. So before I tell you what the immediate answer, which is to go out and vote, I'm going to tell you what you deserve to know. What happens if we do? Well, number one, if we vote and we win, at a minimum, at least these people are not in charge. That's number one. So at a minimum, you now no longer have in charge laptop liberals, Marxist misfits, and the lunatics that go along with them. So that's a big win on its own. But we got to do more than that. You deserve more than that. Number one, we have to stop bad things from happening. That's the first thing you have to do. You don't always play defense, and we can do that in the Senate. The next time that they nominate someone whose thesis in college was about how socialism, Marxism, and the Soviet Union was fantastic, we can actually stop that person from getting a government job where they have some power. We can end that. Number one, stop that. You won't have to worry anymore about whether Joe Manchin's going to change his mind and the filibuster's going to go away and they're going to pack the Supreme Court and they're going to take over our election systems at the federal level. So we have the power to at least stop bad things from happening, and in the Senate that includes nominations. But stopping bad things from happening is not enough. The second thing we do is we can pass things that make sense, that has majority support in this country, like producing more American oil and natural gas. Like having a military that isn't just robust and the strongest in the world, but is focused on the real threat confronting our country for the next 100 years, that's China. It's China. By passing laws that say no longer can the federal government come in and threaten and blackmail your school board and say to them, if you school board do not allow boys to compete against girls in girls sport, if you school board will not, if you won't allow teachers and administrators to tell kids, hey, maybe you were born a girl but you're not a girl, maybe you were born a boy but you're not really a boy, and we're going to help you get through this, and we don't even have to tell your parents, they now threaten school boards with cutting their lunch money and cutting their federal money if they don't go along with these policies. We can pass bills that prohibit that forever. So that's never ever happened. And many other things like that we can pass, and then we can dare Joe Biden to veto it. But now you'll have to answer the American people. And maybe, who knows, you'll get confused and make a mistake and he'll sign it. He's known to do that. But you never know. I mean, maybe he messes up. Oh, I'll sign this. Oops. But we can dare them. That's the second. And the third is accountability. And that's what the oversight job of government is about. It's not about having hearings to embarrass and humiliate people because they didn't vote for us, because they don't agree with us. No, 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 no. What I'm talking about is we need oversight over important agencies in this country to see if they're doing their job or not. Is the Justice Department politicized or not? We need to find out. We need to find out, because it seems one-sided these days. And guys, I'm a huge supporter of the FBI. I have no problem with FBI field offices. But we need to address this problem because people are losing confidence in these important institutions in our country. Because, I don't know, you catch a couple people texting to each other about how they're going to take down a candidate for president. And, you know, every prosecution they bring, every major, you know, the arrest they do is all one-sided. You start to wonder. A lot of people are wondering. Accountability. Accountability at the Pentagon. Who's making these orders for us to be focused on? The military is not a social experiment. It is here to defend us from enemies. Accountability of the Department of Homeland Security. How many terrorists have they apprehended at the border? They say 80. They say 80. Here's what they're very proud of, by the way, all right? What is it? 2 million people cross the border. They say, well, only 1% has a criminal record. Because we all know that the criminal records of places like Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico are very reliable. We can count on them. But let's assume that number is accurate. 1% of 2 million. That's 20,000 people. What are these people talking about? Into our country. Some of them have been deported and returning. Hold them accountable. How can you say the border is insecure when 5,000 people are coming a day? How can you say the border is secure when you have people getting on rafts in the Straits of Florida? And how are your policies contributing, encouraging this? Holding them accountable. Real accountability. Real accountability, by the way, extends to leaders of the political branches. You don't think that some senator like Schumer or somebody standing up and saying to the Supreme Court, these guys are like the Taliban, they're evil human beings. Some guy gets on a plane, flies across the country, they arrest him at 1:30 in the morning outside of Kavanaugh's home. He was there to murder him and maybe another Supreme Court justice. These things need to be brought to light, whether the people in the media want to cover it or not. The American people know, and our job is to bring accountability to all of us. And we don't want to hear, look, I'm excited because I think in the Senate we're going to get new voices that have energy,